The sun shone high over the prison yard. Shadows stretched lazily across the concrete, but under the brightness, tension simmered quietly. Inmates wandered in small groups, tossing basketballs, talking loudly, smoking, or simply pacing the yards. Guards moved in measured loops, eyes scanning. But for now, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Then, the new inmate walked in. A tall, calm figure, dressed in plain prison fatigues, moving slowly, deliberately. He carried himself with ease, hands relaxed at his sides. No one paid him much attention at first. Prison life was loud. Attention was earned with noise, with bravado, with power. A group of bullies noticed him immediately. Big men, shoulders wide, tattoos dark across their arms, faces hardened by years of ruling the yard with intimidation. They leaned against the walls, eyes sharp, scanning for anyone who looked weaker than they were. They didn't see a weak man. They saw someone who could be humiliated. And to them, humiliation was sport. The first sneer appeared. "Hey, new guy, where do you think you're going?" One called, voice loud, filled with mockery. The others laughed. Shoves came next. Light, but deliberate. A show of dominance. The new inmate didn't flinch, didn't react. A few onlookers turned, curiosity sparking. Phones were lifted, whispers floated through the air. What's he gonna do? Looks quiet, bet he folds fast. Confidence crackled through the yard like static electricity. The bullies pressed further, pushing, laughing, shoving. The newcomer's calm was unnerving. Most inmates knew one thing about prisoners who didn't react. They were either scared or planning something. The bullies assumed fear. They were wrong. What they didn't know, what no one knew, was that this man was Steven Seagal, a martial arts master. A man whose years of training had honed not just physical skill, but patience, observation, and control. He could end any fight in seconds. Yet, here he was, silent, calm, watching. And then a subtle change happened. The air shifted, the laughs faltered, confidence wavered ever so slightly. Something about the stillness of the newcomer made the bullies uneasy, even if they didn't yet understand why. The yard didn't know it yet, but everything was about to change. In seconds, the arrogance of the bullies, their laughter and shoves, would meet a force they could neither see nor anticipate. And that force didn't roar, it controlled. Have you ever seen someone underestimate the quietest person in the room? The sun hung high over the prison yard, its harsh light casting long, sharp shadows across the concrete. Guards walked in careful, methodical patterns, their eyes scanning the inmates, but not lingering. Some of the prisoners were playing basketball, tossing the ball with practiced precision, calling out to each other over the echoes of bouncing leather. Others leaned against walls, smoking, sharing gossip, or quietly observing. Conversations floated on the warm air, blending with the distant clanging of metal doors and the occasional shouts from the far side of the yard. Amid this routine, Steven Seagal moved calmly. His prison uniform was simple, plain, blending with the gray and beige tones of the yard. Nothing about him drew attention. No swagger, no arrogance, no signal that he was different. He walked slowly, his gaze scanning, taking in everything without seeming to focus on any one thing. His posture was relaxed but deliberate, his movements controlled. He kept his distance from the larger groups, settling near a quiet corner, where he could observe without interfering. Around him, the bullies ruled this section of the yard. Big men, broad shoulders, faces hardened by years inside, tattoos dark on their arms and necks. Their laughter was loud, their gestures commanding. They moved in packs, circling those they considered weaker, testing boundaries with smirks, shoves, and sharp words. Inmates stepped aside for them. Others whispered in their presence. Confidence, intimidation, and control radiated from them, like heat from the sun. To the casual observer, it was just another day in prison. Routine, noise, light, shadows. Nothing to disrupt the rhythm of the yard. Inmates came and went, guards followed their loops, and the sun moved slowly across the sky. But for those who could see more deeply, there were signs of subtle tension. The bullies scanned every new face. Their eyes measured strength, patience, and reactions. And the quiet figure of the newcomer caught their attention, though they could not yet place why. Steven Seagal, didn't act. He didn't speak. He didn't raise his voice. He simply observed. Every movement, every glance, every twitch of muscle was catalogued in his mind. Patience was his weapon. Awareness, his shield, control his power. He didn't need to prove anything yet. The yard would reveal itself soon enough. Danger often hides in plain sight. Calm moments can turn into chaos. A quiet observer may be stronger than the loudest provocateur. The world doesn't announce the threats that matter most. The bully's eyes locked onto the new inmate. They had spotted him as soon as he entered the yard, tall, calm, and moving with a quiet confidence that unsettled them, though they didn't know why. They didn't know he was Steven Seagal. They didn't know the years of training, the discipline, the mastery behind his quiet demeanor. All they saw was a new target. "Look at the new guy." One of the bigger inmates sneered, his voice sharp and dripping with mockery. He nudged his friend, eyes gleaming with challenge. Laughter followed, sharp and loud, bouncing off the concrete walls. The bullies circled slowly, closing in like predators assessing prey. One of them stepped forward, extending a hand to shove the newcomer lightly, just enough to get a reaction. Others laughed, anticipating the expected fear, the tremble, the flinch. But there was none. Steven Seagal didn't even shift. He didn't flinch. His gaze stayed steady, calm, and measured. He observed them as if seeing through the noise of their bravado. Other inmates noticed the confrontation. Some paused their conversations. Some leaned forward, curious. A few grabbed their phones, ready to capture what they assumed would be an explosive reaction. The air grew tense. Whispers and murmurs rippled through the yard. Betty folds fast. This is going to be good. Confidence radiated from the bullies, their arrogance growing with every second of silence from their target. One bully laughed again, louder this time, trying to assert dominance. He shoved Steven again, slightly harder. A few nearby inmates gasped, anticipating a fight. Yet Steven remained calm. He did not step back, did not raise his voice, did not attempt to scare them. Instead, he shifted his weight subtly, adjusting his stance, ready, aware, but in complete control. Every muscle was relaxed, but prepared. Every eye flick, every motion was intentional. Silent communication of readiness. The bullies began to sense something different, something unsettling. The lack of fear, the lack of reaction. It was not weakness. Their laughter faltered slightly, but pride pushed them forward. They doubled down, making crude comments, mocking his quietness, trying to provoke a reaction. The yard grew quieter as more inmates noticed. Even the guards, passing nearby, paused, sensing the tension. A subtle hum of expectation spread through the crowd. The silence was heavier than any shout. Everyone felt the shift in energy, the invisible line being drawn. Steven's calm was unnerving. The bullies did not yet know that patience and control were weapons far more powerful than arrogance or brute force. The quiet, measured gaze of the newcomer carried a weight that none of them could measure. Yet, have you ever seen someone pushed too far and stayed quiet? Steven's eyes swept across the prison yard. Every detail mattered. The sun glared off the concrete, highlighting the sweat and tension of the inmates clustered near the basketball court. He saw the bullies, tall, broad, filled with arrogance and anticipation. They assumed control of this section of the yard. But Steven didn't see domination. He saw overconfidence, impatience, and mistakes waiting to happen. He could end this in seconds. Years of martial arts training, discipline, and combat experience whispered inside him, like an invisible voice. Every muscle, every reflex, every instinct was ready. He could strike with precision, disarm, subdue, and neutralize the threat before it escalated. Any one of them would fall instantly under his skill. But this wasn't about ego. This wasn't about proving strength to onlookers or humbling bullies for fun. It was about respect, the kind that commands attention without demanding fear, the kind that teaches lessons without leaving scars deeper than those visible. He understood that real power wasn't measured by how quickly he could react, but by the restraint he could maintain. Steven's hand brushed slightly over the seam of his uniform, adjusting his posture. He inhaled slowly, deliberately. Every breath was measured. He centered himself, grounding in the present, fully aware of the eyes on him. The bullies noticed the calm aura surrounding him. They were unsettled, but pride kept them rooted in arrogance. Confidence flickered in their eyes like a candle struggling against the wind. In the yard, the other inmates felt it too, the subtle shift in energy, the silence that grew heavier by the second. Phones lowered. Conversations paused. Guards glanced closer. Everyone instinctively knew that something was about to happen, but they didn't know what, or how controlled it would be. Steven weighed his options in a fraction of a heartbeat. He could escalate with aggression, but that would teach nothing. He could ignore them, but letting arrogance go unchallenged would encourage future abuse. No, the right choice required discipline. It required timing, strategy, and composure. He straightened fully, planting his feet firmly on the ground. His shoulders relaxed, but remained strong. Every inch of his body communicated readiness without threat. His gaze locked onto the lead bully, calm and unwavering. There was no rush, no impatience, no anger, just quiet authority. He thought about the lesson he wanted to impart. Control is stronger than chaos. Respect is earned, not demanded. Humiliation is a weapon for the weak. Mastery comes from restraint. In that moment, Steven decided that his actions would speak louder than words, and silence would amplify their impact. The bullies sensed the subtle warning in his posture. Their laughter faltered, then stuttered. Doubt crept in, though they tried to hide it. They were used to victims flinching, bowing, reacting. This quiet, calm presence was foreign, unnerving. It was a weight they had not accounted for. Steven's calm became a mirror, reflecting their insecurity back at them. They did not yet know that this mirror could teach lessons more powerful than force. And in that quiet tension, the stage was set for the confrontation to come. The decision was made, but the execution was yet to unfold. Real power is in restraint. Not reaction. True authority comes from knowing what you could do, and choosing what you should do. Patience is a weapon. Calm is a shield. Control is the ultimate form of strength. The lead bully stepped forward, his boots scraping against the concrete, his presence dominating the yard. "Who do you think you are?" he barked, voice sharp and full of mockery. His companions circled like sharks, sensing the tension and ready to back him up. Laughter bubbled from the group, loud and cruel, a soundtrack to the humiliation they intended to inflict. With a sudden shove, the bully pushed against Steven's shoulder. The impact was deliberate, meant to provoke a reaction, to see fear or aggression flicker in the newcomer's calm demeanor. Around them, the yard reacted. Other inmates paused in their conversations. Phones emerged. Eyes widened. Whispers spread. Curiosity and anticipation crackled like electricity through the air. Steven didn't flinch. His body remained grounded, muscles relaxed but alert, his weight shifting subtly to absorb and redirect the push. He didn't retaliate. He didn't shout. He didn't allow pride or anger to dictate his actions. Instead, he positioned himself to protect without aggression, a calm barrier between the bully's arrogance and the quiet order he commanded. The bully tried again, emboldened by silence. He shoved harder, stepped closer, leaning into Steven's space. His friends laughed louder now, feeding off the tension, egging him on. Their confidence was visible, radiating like heat. But Steven's eyes remained steady, unwavering, focused, absorbing every movement, every micro-expression. He could end it. He knew it. But this wasn't about brute force. This was about demonstrating authority without chaos. The yard grew quieter. The murmur of curiosity became a tense hush. Inmates watched, phones recording, guards instinctively alert, sensing the silent escalation. The air thickened, heavy with anticipation. Every shove, every laugh, every step from the bully was met not with fear or aggression, but with calm presence. And that calm presence was unsettling. A few of the bully's friends shifted uneasily. They had expected a quick show of weakness. The newcomer had none. The audacity of calm where they anticipated fear chipped at their pride, though they tried to hide it behind laughter and bravado. The lead bully's face tightened. Doubt flickered, but arrogance pressed on. With another push, Steven shifted once more, redirecting the energy of the shove, subtly moving the bully's balance without using force. A micro-movement, precise, almost imperceptible, but it communicated dominance. The bully stumbled slightly, just enough for the yard to notice. Gasps echoed softly. Phones wavered. The crowd realized something had changed. This wasn't a simple victim. This was someone in complete control. The bully's arrogance flared into frustration. He lunged, his fist raised slightly, ready to intimidate further. But Steven's calm, deliberate stance, his unwavering gaze, and measured breathing made the yard hold its collective breath. The bully's aggression collided with precision, not a punch, not a strike, just movement, subtle and precise, enough to disarm tension and assert authority. The yard reacted instantly. Friends of the bully froze, their laughter gone, their confidence shaken. Onlookers whispered, leaning in. The atmosphere charged with a strange mix of awe and fear. Even guards paused, recognizing the shift. The bully realized, too late, that his attempt at dominance was unraveling. Steven didn't chase, didn't shout, didn't need to. His presence alone communicated the lesson. The subtle control of his actions, the calm authority, had overturned arrogance without chaos. The yard felt it. The lesson was clear. Would you intervene or stay silent if you saw someone bullied like this? Would you recognize strength in restraint, or only in the chaos you expect? The lead bully's pride had grown with every shove, every smirk, every laugh that had gone unanswered. Confidence radiated from him in waves, like heat from the sun overhead. But Steven Seagal remained calm, a grounded presence in the chaos, watching, waiting, analyzing. The tension had reached its peak. Every inmate in the yard felt it, the almost tangible pressure of a storm about to break. Then the bully lunged. Not a wild swing, not a desperate shove, but a calculated motion designed to provoke, to intimidate, to assert dominance over someone he assumed would bend. His momentum was forward, his balance aggressive, and his friends erupted in laughter. Certain, the quiet newcomer would finally flinch. Phones lifted, whispers rippled, and even the guards' hands hovered closer to their belts, sensing imminent escalation. Steven's response was a study in precision. He didn't move hastily. He didn't let his power spill out in anger. Every motion was deliberate, fluid, controlled. As the bully lunged, Steven subtly shifted his weight, a quiet pivot that absorbed the force rather than opposing it directly. With a single smooth motion, he guided the bully's arm slightly to the side, just enough to redirect the energy of the charge. The effect was immediate. The bully stumbled, his aggressive momentum betrayed by Steven's subtle redirection. One step, two steps, and then he lost his balance completely. His friends gasped, laughter froze in the air, phones wavered. The once confident bully fell to the concrete with a thud, landing not in a heap of injury, but awkwardly disoriented, humiliated, and most importantly, aware that he had been bested without the slightest aggression. The yard went completely silent. Inmates froze mid-step, eyes wide. The basketball court, the smoking corners, the walking circles, all paused. Even the guards stopped, hands on belts, recognizing the rare spectacle unfolding. The energy of the yard had shifted. Control, not chaos, ruled the space now. Steven didn't advance. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His presence alone communicated authority, skill, and restraint. Slowly, deliberately, he stood tall, shoulders squared, breathing steady. The bully lay there, chest heaving, pride crushed, mind racing to understand what had just happened. His friends scrambled back, stepping aside, their laughter gone, replaced with hesitation and respect tinged with fear. Then Steven spoke, softly but clearly, letting his words carry across the silent yard. Respect is earned, not forced, not feared. The simplicity of the statement cut deeper than any strike could have. It wasn't a threat, it wasn't a warning. It was truth embodied in motion and presence. The bully had been given a lesson in authority, discipline, and control, and the yard had witnessed it. Other inmates, who had been anticipating a chaotic fight, now realized something profound. This was mastery. This was skill. This was power held in restraint. The lesson reverberated through the concrete and steel of the prison yard. Intimidation works on the weak. Arrogance fails against calm authority, and control ends conflicts far more efficiently than aggression ever could. The bully rose shakily to his feet, his arrogance replaced with quiet regret. His friends kept their distance, murmuring to each other, their earlier confidence extinguished. The other inmates whispered, nodded, and in some cases, applauded quietly, recognizing the rare spectacle they had just witnessed. Even the guards exchanged glances, acknowledging that this was not a common occurrence. Steven's calm gaze swept the yard once more, landing briefly on each observer. Nothing more was necessary. He had spoken with movement, with presence, with a lesson that would linger far longer than any violent encounter could. The yard had been transformed, not by fists, not by chaos, but by discipline and skill. Discipline and skill can end a fight without violence. Real authority is silent. Real strength is controlled. True mastery does not rely on force. It relies on presence, observation, and restraint. A conflict resolved with control leaves lasting respect, not fear. In that moment, the prison yard understood something rare. Power is not loud. Power is precise. Power is calm. And the quiet man in plain uniform had just demonstrated it for everyone watching. The yard was silent, the echo of concrete steps and murmurs fading as the bully scrambled backward, his friends stumbling to follow him. Their arrogance, once so bold, had been replaced by quiet humiliation. Faces that had been filled with mockery now betrayed confusion and respect tinged with fear. They muttered to each other, trying to rationalize what had just happened. But the lesson was clear. The quiet man, calm and composed, had won without striking a single blow. Other inmates began to react slowly. Some nodded to each other, recognizing the skill it had taken to subdue the bully without aggression. Whispers spread across the yard. "Did you see that? Who is he? No one moves like that." Phones were lowered from eager hands, and even those who had been recording realized that the true story had been told without the need for dramatics. There was no fight, no chaos, only the subtle power of precision, control, and awareness. The guards, who had been observing from their loops around the yard, exchanged cautious glances. They had witnessed many conflicts before, but this was different. There was no shouting, no blood, no need for intervention, and yet authority had been restored in a way that left no doubt. The yard had been controlled without unnecessary violence. The prison atmosphere shifted slightly, an invisible but palpable mark of respect and order left by the newcomer. Steven Seagal moved slowly back to a quiet corner of the yard. Each step measured, deliberate, calm. He sat down on a bench, his posture relaxed but commanding, shoulders squared, gaze sweeping the yard one last time. There was no sign of triumph or aggression on his face, just calm, patient authority without display. Around him, the inmates began to process what they had witnessed. The whispers grew louder, curiosity mingling with awe. By evening, the story of the day had spread through the prison faster than any rumor. From the cafeteria to the recreational area, from the workshops to the cells, inmates recounted the scene in hushed tones. The new guy, he didn't fight, and he stopped them all. "I've never seen anyone move like that. Discipline. He taught them without even hitting them." The legend of the quiet, composed inmate grew with every telling. In the yard, there was a shift in behavior. Bullies tread more carefully. Inmates who had felt powerless before now walked taller, seeing an example of strength guided by control rather than brute force. Respect had been earned, not demanded. The prison itself seemed to breathe differently, a subtle acknowledgement that the balance of power had changed, not through fear or intimidation, but through skill and discipline. Steven's wife, though not physically present in the prison, would have recognized the same principles in action: calm, patience, authority without ego. The lesson applied to every human encounter, inside or outside walls. By observing rather than reacting, by restraining rather than striking, Steven had demonstrated the highest form of mastery. The bullies, still muttering among themselves, tried to salvage what pride they had left. But the lesson was etched deep. They would think twice before testing someone they did not understand. The other inmates would remember how the quiet man moved with precision, observed every detail, and acted only when necessary. The fear that comes from violence was absent. The respect born from control lingered far longer than any punishment could. In the cells that night, inmates replayed the events in their minds. Conversations about dominance and hierarchy had shifted. The quiet, patient, disciplined approach had redefined what strength truly meant. One could be feared for being loud or aggressive, but one was remembered for calm control. Stories of the incident would circulate for weeks. A powerful lesson whispered across the prison: mastery is not in the chaos you create, but in the control you maintain. True strength is measured not by the fear you create, but the control you maintain. Discipline can surpass aggression. patience can outweigh power. Authority earned through calm observation and measured action leaves an impact that brute force never can. Real mastery is subtle, precise, and enduring. Type respect if you believe discipline is stronger than anger. Would you have had the patience and courage to stand quietly, analyze the situation, and act with precision rather than reaction? Could you command authority without raising your voice, without striking, and still teach a lesson everyone remembers? The story of the new inmate, the quiet presence who humbled bullies without a single violent strike, would live on in whispers and nods of respect. The yard had been transformed, not through chaos, but through calm mastery. And in that transformation, every observer understood a simple truth. The strongest person in the room is not the loudest, not the fastest, not the one who strikes first, but the one who acts with control, patience, and unwavering discipline.